So this isn't normally my wheelhouse. I don't typically do any sort of news conversation. I let the news girls and guys talk about this because they're really detailed and they give you all the good information and stuff like that. But I couldn't help myself. I just saw this and I've seen so many things on the Micah Parsons. And by the way, if you didn't know Micah Parsons, I mean to break the spoiler out there. Micah Parsons on the Green Bay Packers? What? I didn't know about that. But yes, I think that there's a big conversation to this that is not really being understood. And to me, like, first off, I want to congratulate the Green Bay Packers. This is a great deal. I've been saying for the Green Bay Packers for a long time, Gutekunst, it's time to maybe put the chips in a little bit and be ready to go all in. Take a little bit of a risk because their roster is so good that you can afford to do something like this. So good for Green Bay. It's a win for them. But it's also a major win for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what I want to talk about here and why I think Jerry Jones is being hated on way, way too much. Yes, he called him Michael. And I so want Micah to go, "What's my name? What's my name?" every time he gets a sack when he the Cowboys game. But that's beside the point. He corrected himself. Let's not make fun of Jerry. Hey, I mean, I'm already forgetting things. I'm 31 years old. I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about sometimes. So, yeah, when you get older, things like that happen. So let's be a little lenient on that. He, like I said, he corrected himself. But just talking about the roster in general, when we look at the shape of this now, this new defensive line and where you got a lot more youth coming out here with Marshawn Nealon, Donovan Ezraku, maybe Sam Williams stays healthy. You got your veteran with Dante Fowler Jr. in the room. Got James Houston could be a good situational pass rusher for them. They've invested 3 second-round picks into edge rushers over the past few years. And you have to look at it from Jerry Jones' perspective in what he has probably nightmares right now of paying expensive contracts to football players that are not producing or being injured. So he's thinking to himself, why would I pay Micah Parsons $47 million when I can go get 5+ players on the roster and have all this depth? It takes more than just one player to win a Super Bowl. Now, there are different ways to win a Super Bowl. There's no one size fits all when it comes to winning. So you see like teams like the Rams where they have this top-loaded heavy roster and they won a Super Bowl. Now, that's the thing though. And even the Rams nowadays are getting away from that philosophy. They are trying to go to more of a well-rounded, young core, cheaper deals and stuff like that. If you've noticed them, because they know that like long-term wise, that's the way to win. In my opinion, that's the way to win. Sometimes you can get away with it. Again, there's teams like the Eagles and now the Packers who it's like you have so much talent. You've drafted so well. You've done a good job. You can take some risks. You can pay some contracts and do sort of things like that. But ultimately, I think long-term success, you have to be able to be really, really tight with your budget and well-rounded with your football team. It's not just about one or two players. It's a team game. And Jerry just has seen a lot of nightmares in the past with these contracts and not working out. So I totally get where he's coming from this decision. He's now going to have 2 extra first-round picks at his helm to be able to bring in cheap talent. And that's another thing you look at, too. Even if they're late first-round picks, which they're probably going to be, they're going to be cheap contracts because they're at the end of the first round. So cheap 5-year contracts that you now have young players on. You're probably not getting Micah Parsons. That is very fair to say. And there's a good chance that maybe he misses on both of those picks. I do think the Cowboys are a good drafting team. They're not perfect, and I know people are going to bring up the Mozzie Smith or Luke Schoonmaker, don't draft Michigan guys, Taco Carlton's, right? And I get that. But at the same time, I think they've also done a good job of drafting some very, very good talent. And you look at this roster, guys like Donovan Ezraku, I think is going to be really good. We'll see about Marshawn Nealon. Of course, Osa Digizua. You go on offense, right? They've done a great job with some offensive linemen. Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, I think is going to be great, going into year number 2. Tyler Booker already looks really, really good. Receivers, CeeDee Lamb, that was a BPA, great pick, one of the best picks they've had in recent years. They find some players, okay? So it's not like they're a horrific drafting team. I've seen worse drafting teams, trust me. So they can draft talent. And when they have more draft picks, they could also trade down, turn those into more picks. While it's only 2 picks right now, it could turn into 3, 4, 5 picks even, depending on what they decide to do with some of that draft capital. Or they could even trade for, talent or whatever they want to do. Overall, I think that it was a smart move for the Packers and a very smart move as well for the Cowboys. And it's not like I think they got fleeced. Ideally, they would have gotten a conditional pick, like a second or third rounder, depending on how Micah Parsons does, all pro nods, Super Bowl championship, things like that. If that would have been the little kicker that I would have liked to have seen added. But they did get Kenny Clark, and we need to mention Kenny Clark because he's 29 years old. Yeah, he's close to 30, and he might be towards the past prime of his career. He's finally healthy, though, and he's going to help out this run defense majorly because that is a huge, and it's been a huge problem for this football team. Yes, you have a superstar pass rusher in Micah Parsons. I mean, they had the law over on the opposite end, too, for a while, and it's like now that they don't have both of those guys, you're going to have these young guys step up, but at least you're going to be able to stop the run better. Their interior looks very good now with Kenny Clark and Osa Digizua. That two combination should be really good. And between those four or five pass rushers that they have on their roster, at least they're going to keep those guys fresh and be able to rotate. They should be able to get after the passer still. I don't feel like this is going to be, it's not the worst edge room. I'll just say that. It's not great, but it's not the worst edge room. And if Ezraku, Nealand, Williams, if those guys step up and play well, then they're going to outperform what they're being talked about right now. So that is why I'm saying for this football team overall, with the past history that they've had with these big contracts and the fact that Jerry just didn't feel comfortable giving Micah Parsons that much money. And now he's going to have more draft capital to continue to build this roster because, they've got plenty of holes. And Cowboys fans, you've gone nowhere. I mean, that's just what it is. Sometimes you have to change. You can't just sit here and say, okay, we're just going to keep the status quo as is. We're just going to keep doing this. That would have been the easy, congratulations, you paid Micah Parsons, good job. Everybody would have been fine. Okay, you're good. He made the move. It's a bold move. I get that. But it's a move that could set this franchise in a new direction. And hopefully a better direction. Not guaranteed. So I get that. The Micah Parsons signing him would have been more of the safe move. But once again, are they going in the right direction? Are they a legit Super Bowl contender? Those are all big questions. And that ultimately is my reasoning for this. Last thing I do want to harp on real quick as we look at the cap situation and really how it ripples and impacts this roster even more. And we've already mentioned this, but the cap situation is so big into the reason why they did this. It opens up money right away by losing Micah Parsons. They have $40+ million available to them so they can fill out some depth if they have those injuries, which beforehand, you go into the seasons of prior, when they have injuries, it's just like they don't have the depth to fill these voids. And it's been a huge problem for them. Now at least they've got some play money. And they're going to have to use this money too for next season and whatnot. Obviously, you're going to have guys like Deron Bland, George Pickens, potentially all options for them to sign. And whether or not you want them to sign, those are all going to be things that they'll have to negotiate and figure out. When you look at their contracts, though, and some of these are rough. And that's another reason that's led to this situation. Dak Prescott. Is he worth that money? $50 million cap at this season. Next year, he's like $74 million. So, that argument is to be played. Terrence Steele, has he been worth this contract so far? No. Trevon Diggs, has he been worth this contract? No, not at the moment. Hopefully he gets fully healthy and is playing this season. That's going to be a big thing because Diggs is a good player. And Steele, we'll see, but he's got to get better as a pass protector. Different points there to be made. Anyway, like when you look into next year, their cap situation is not a whole ton better. I mean, they still have like $40 million going into next season to be able to play in the offseason. So that's going to be something where they can use that Micah Parsons money rather than paying him. They're going to use that money to pay some guys to fill out the roster and have depth rather than just hope that your superstars here stay healthy, which has not been, they've not stayed healthy for the Cowboys. So that's really what I'm trying to say with this is that the Cowboys in general, I feel like they made this move out of the past decade and what they have seen with the amount of injuries that they have had with their superstar players. And then just generally their superstar players not performing to the level that they're getting paid. So if they're not performing to the level that you're paying them and it happens over and over and over again, it's a psychological thing. So Jerry Jones, it's not like he's saying, yeah, of course, Micah Parsons is a super talented player. Let's just let him go to let him go. He has a little bit of PTSD, you can call it, from giving all this money to these players and it's not working out for them, and they're not winning. They're not getting to even a conference championship. They're not getting to Super Bowls. He's, he's used to winning some Super Bowls. He wants to win Super Bowls, and I can tell there's the passion there to still win and be a really good football team. So that's why all I can say is, at the end of the day, he has to make a tough decision, and it's a business decision. There's no doubt about it. I actually think it's a good move for both sides, and for the Cowboys, you have to look at it from many angles. That this could actually be a very good move if they can draft and develop. That is the key. Now they're going to have a lot more depth with free agency money, and hopefully more talent in general to fill some of the voids for injuries in this roster, which to me, they're more of a cohesive built team, like the Rams are trying to do, like a lot of football. The 49ers are taking that approach now. There's so many teams. The Cardinals have taken that approach. That whole divisions, they're copying each other. But, you look at across the NFL. I mean, the Packers have done that for years. So I think a lot of really good franchises, that's the approach that they take. They're building for long-term success, not just a top-heavy roster that's you're hoping stays healthy. Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's my opinions. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. I'll be back with draft content, probably more of my lane here.